Welcome everyone to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today we have a very special guest, Lynda Ellis. Lynda is the CEO, president, and owner of Capitol Concierge. Welcome to the show, Lynda.
Thanks so much. I appreciate being here.
Oh, the pleasure is all ours. Thank you so much for being on. So before we get started on your personal journey, if you can please share with the audience, Lynda, as far as what is Capitol Concierge?
We are a concierge company, a global concierge company that provides services for you, whoever you are, anything that you need, as long as it's legal and ethical. So if you need us to plan an event for you, if you need us to get your home renovated, if you need us to get travel for you, we will do all of that.
Oh, that's great. So before Capitol Concierge, who is Lynda? Where were you born? Where are you from?
I was actually born and raised in Las Vegas, born in the Las Vegas hospital, and grew up there. I didn't leave Las Vegas until I was 22 and enjoyed it, but I am much happier being in Maryland because I am not a desert rat. If you're born and raised in Nevada, you are a desert rat, and I'm absolutely not a desert rat.
You know, I'm thinking of Vegas and concierge. That's like Capital Central for concierge and hospitality services.
It very much is. And so hospitality runs in my blood. From a very young age, I was taught that you provide service to others, you're proactive, and you see things, and nobody should have to say, you need to go get that, or you need to get that done. You should see it and you should go do it.
I'm just curious, did you have any family or any relatives in the hospitality industry in Las Vegas?
No, I do have, my father was an entrepreneur, so it kind of runs in my blood.
Okay.
I was, I guess, being born and raised in Las Vegas, hospitality was in the air.
Sure, it definitely is. You can immediately feel it when you're in the city there.
Absolutely.
So you were there in Vegas until 22, you said, right?
Yes.
So growing up in Vegas, how were you like? What were you into as a child?
I loved growing up in Las Vegas. It was wonderful. Hated the heat, but I loved being in Las Vegas for a number of reasons. It was a very safe city to grow up in. I actually was raised by a single father, and so he had me very, very busy, so I didn't get into trouble. He's the one who taught me that you give back to the community. He was born and raised in Belfast, Ireland, came over through Ellis Island when he was 16, and to the signs in the windows that said INNA, the Irish need not to apply, because the Irish weren't good enough to clean toilets then. But he was so courageous and taught me that everybody counts, never taught me prejudice. But he also told me that you give back to the community and that you can do whatever you want to do as long as you want to do it and you're willing to work hard for it. So even being a girl, I didn't know I couldn't do something because my father was always saying, if you want to do that, go do that. So I didn't know that there was this thing about gender, right? Didn't grow up, although he was a male chauvinist, because my dates would have to open the door. They couldn't honk. It was all of that stuff, right? That was annoying to me at the time. But I grew up volunteering from as long as I can remember, and I would volunteer in hospitals. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Masonic Order, but my dad was a 32nd, became a Shriner. And there was the girls of the Masons were Rainbow Girls. So I entered Rainbow when I was 12. That was the earliest you could do it. And was very, very active, held a state office, did all of that. But it was all about giving back and making sure that you were doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, whether anybody was looking or not. So in addition to that, and going to school, my dad, I was in first Brownie Scouts, then Girl Scouts. I was in Campfire Girls. Any kind of volunteer community group I was in, because you got to give back. So I really never got into any trouble. I just didn't ever have any time to get in trouble. And it was one of those things where my dad used to say, because when I was 16, I had saved my money and I wanted to go buy a car. And he said, Lynda, you don't need a car. You got 2 legs. So I walked everywhere, bus, whatever. But it was a good life. And it was, my dad was very special in that he surrounded me in love and unconditional love. And so I had a good childhood growing up, if you will. It was hard. I was born on the wrong side of the tracks. I still have not figured out what the right side of the tracks are, incidentally. But he was blue collar and you worked. And I remember saying to him when I was very young that I wanted some money. I used to get $1 a week as an allowance. And I remember saying, yes, I want X dollars or I want X money. And he'd say, sure, you can have that. Somebody's windows needs washing, somebody's lawn needs mowing, you just go get that. So I've always thought if you need more money, you just go work and you get more money.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
A lot of great things he's taught you. And it's great to hear that even at such a young age, you were already giving back in the community.
It was not an option. My dad used to say, from what I can remember, you live in the most wonderful country in this world, and you need to respect and appreciate it. Because he grew up in a country that wasn't as accepting or wasn't as supportive, even though the Irish are very supportive of one another. It was very different, particularly in those days. My dad was 45 when I was born. And so I give him a lot of credit, not for just the things that I've shared, but also, excuse me, he had a 15-year-old female that he was raising all by himself when he was 60. So that anybody who's a parent of girls understand how the hormones are going crazy at that age. But he was very wonderful and kept me focused. And it wasn't if you're going to give back, you do give back. There was no question about that, right? And so I learned at a very young age that there is no way you can give as much as you receive. Because when you give something, when you do something for someone, doesn't necessarily mean you're giving them money, but when you're helping someone else, you get such a great feeling knowing that you helped another human being. And so I learned very young, but by giving back, you get a whole lot back yourself.
That's so true. You mentioned earlier, Lynda, how your dad had his own business. Were you involved at all, or were you seeing it just from a distance?
Oh, I was involved in getting in the way. I was involved in that. But my dad was a butcher, and some people say a meat cutter. But he actually, when I was just a baby, my uncle, my mom's brother, and he opened a market. And my mom was born and raised in Denver, and her brother, of course, was there. Anyway, they came down from Denver and moved to Las Vegas. And what I didn't understand at the time, and it was years before I really understood, that they had an addiction to gambling. And so my uncle, who was my only aunt and uncle, gambled the store away. So my dad lost the store. And that had to be hard. I was very young, not quite 4, I guess about 4. And when I was 5, my mom took my 2 older brothers and left me with my dad. And I know that had to be so hard for him, but he was very focused. And so he went to work in a place called Mike's Meat Market, and he worked there for, excuse me, for years. And when you say, did you help with that or were you around that? Yeah, I remember walking to my dad's store and getting in the way, waiting for him to get off. Or one of my most favorite memories, and still today, there is no bologna like my father's bologna. because I love bologna. And I would go down to my dad's market and there would be sawdust. I mean, that doesn't happen now, but there was sawdust on the floor, it was a wood floor. And he would set me up on the counter, give me a slice of bologna that was about at least 1/4 of an inch thick, and cut off a piece of cheddar cheese, wrap the cheese in the bologna, and that's what I ate. It was wonderful. I mean, just one of my most happiest memories of sitting there. But I also, I'll share a lesson that I learned from my dad during that time. And I've learned a lot from my dad. But one of the customers came into the meat market and said, he greeted the customer, and the customer said, yeah, give me my usual. And it was 2 pork chops. And so my dad cut the pork chops and put them up on the scale. And he said, is this good? And the customer said, no, Danny, you know better than that. That's not what I want. So my dad looked at him and he said, you know what? That's right. And so he cut another 2 pork chops, put them up on the scale, and the customer says, yeah, that's exactly what I want. So my dad wrapped them up and the customer goes on his way. And after he left, I said, Daddy, those pork chops looked exactly the same to me. And he said they were. And I said, well, and he said, that man comes in every single Wednesday for 2 pork chops. That man's my customer. He was right.
Wow.
It's, and I don't believe customers are always right, because as soon as you say someone's right, you just said somebody's wrong. But what my dad taught me was the customer is the customer. And there's a period after that. So the most earliest memories I can remember about customer service, and that was my dad.
I love that story, Lynda. Thank you for sharing it.
Absolutely. It's one of my, along with the bologna and cheese, it's one of my favorite memories.
So at 22, you end up leaving Las Vegas, and where do you head to?
I went to San Francisco because I wanted to become a stewardess. That's what they were called in those days. And I did become a stewardess. And the reason I did that is because I had met my husband. I had been working at the Review Journal in Las Vegas, which was at the time Nevada's largest newspaper. And I met my husband soon, or ultimately to become my husband. And he had come from Japan. He had been in the service in the Air Force, he got out of the Air Force, stayed there for a year and sold life insurance. And then there was some kind of a ruling where in order to stay in Japan, in a foreign country, you had to have a license in the US for a year. So Bill, my future husband, came back to the States, which is when I met him, got his license and sold insurance for a year so he could go back to Japan. And we met, and there was a non-fraternization policy at the newspaper, which was interesting, but nobody knew we were dating. And so anyway, Bill said, well, if it was time for him to go back, and he said, if, when I come back in 5 years, if neither one of us are with somebody else, we'll get back together. So that was all fine. That was in August. And so I started to fly because I wanted to be able to go over to Japan, certainly couldn't afford it. And so I got an offer from Delta Airlines, but also an offer from a company which was a non-scheduled carrier, which think charter aircraft, from Standard Airways. And they did all of the movement of our soldiers into Vietnam. And they went through Japan, through Thailand, through Korea. And so I thought, oh no, I'm going to take Standard Airways because I could go see Bill. So I go up to Seattle for flight training, and the day I graduated, Standard lost their contract with the government. I was devastated. It was like, are you kidding me? Anyway, so I flew for them for almost a year, had a great time, flew over to Japan for a visit for a couple of days, and then came back. And in March, I moved over there permanently. And Bill and I were married over there, and we lived there for 9 years.
In Japan?
Yeah, in Tokyo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we were married over there. Our daughter was born over there. That's where I grew up, because, when you're 22, what do you know? You think you know everything and you know nothing, right? And we played very, very, very hard in Tokyo. We were there for 5 years before our daughter was born. So we had a great time. It was really fun, and I learned a lot. Learned a lot about the culture. I learned a lot about the Japanese, about the wisdom in Asia. I mean, you think about it. We were over there in 76 celebrating our country, the US, 200th birthday. They're thousands of years old, and we, the Americans, think we know everything, right? So it was a wonderful experience, something I would not ever give up. It was truly a gift and taught me a lot. And I worked over there, did a lot, I'm so sorry. I did a lot of work for the American Red Cross, volunteered, and I was in the casualty staging facility at Yokota Air Base for several months, that's where they brought all of our wounded out of Vietnam. And I got to go see and talk to the guys, and they were only there overnight, but it was a wonderful experience. So I was spending, because I couldn't get a job, that's another story. And so I would spend 60, 80 hours a week out at the CSF. And what a gift that was, remains such a special place in my heart. And then the Red Cross said, well, why don't you come to work for us? I said, okay. So I was a blood drive chairman, and then I went to work for the Red Cross, and then I got pregnant. And they said, well, you can't be pregnant and work here. That was a long time ago. So I quit, had our daughter, and then subsequently to that, I became the sales administrator for Chrysler International in Tokyo, and had a great time doing that. So I imported all of the vehicles into the Far Eastern Theater countries, whether that was Thailand or Japan, Guam, Okinawa, Korea, wherever. So it was wonderful. It was a great experience.
So you were there in Tokyo around 9 years, you said?
We were there 9 years, just a little over 9 years.
Okay. So you're in your early 30s when you returned back to America, right?
Yes.
Okay. And do you land in San Francisco or where, Las Vegas, or where?
No, we landed back in San Francisco. My husband was at the time, while we were in Japan, was working for Mutual United of Omaha, the Indian logo. And they wanted him to he was manager of Japan. They asked him to be manager of Korea. I so wanted him to do that. Didn't make that sale, unfortunately, because he had been over there at TDY, and it gets really, really cold, and he's not a cold person. He doesn't like the cold. So Mutual United of Omaha was opening their very, very first stateside military division office. And they asked Bill to open it. So we flew from Tokyo into via Honolulu and San Francisco into San Antonio, Texas, where we lived for over 14 years. And so, people have asked me about how was that going from Las Vegas to Tokyo to San Antonio? We'll talk about culture shocks, because you go from Las Vegas to Tokyo, and then you go to San Antonio. Those are 3 very different places. And one of the things that I found when we were in our first Christmas, we had some friends that we knew in Japan who had rotated back to one of the bases in San Antonio, and they asked us over for Christmas dinner. And so we were supposed to bring the wine. And my husband said to me on Christmas Eve, did you get the wine? I said, no, we'll get it on the way tomorrow morning. He said, what do you mean we're going to get it on the way tomorrow morning? And I said, well, we'll just pick it up. I mean, why not? He said, Lynda, this is a dry county. You're not going to pick up wine. I said, what? And he got really upset with me. Well, and I said to him, you know what, Bill? I lived 22 years of my life in a place that never closes down. You can buy anything you want, any day you want, anytime you want. Then we go to Tokyo and everything is open on Christmas Day. It closes on midnight on New Year's, right? So I didn't think about, so the Texans are weird, right? So it was just one of those things where the cultures are very different.
Yes. At that time, Lynda, were you still involved in the automotive industry or no?
No. What I did is I separated, I quit so we could move. And then I helped my husband set up the agency in San Antonio from an office perspective and get that started. And I had always wanted to go to college and I hadn't done that. And so as soon as his agency was set up and our daughter was taken care of in terms of where she was going to go to school and everything, then I went back to school to get my.
What did you decide to major in?
I majored in management science, managing resources.
Okay.
I love to grow things. I am a serial entrepreneur, whatever that means. But when I was 12, I started my first company. And it was babysitting. I made more money than any of my friends. And then when we got to San Antonio, when I was in college, I started a novelty business, and which I ultimately sold. It was called Pollock Enterprises. And I ultimately sold that to Neiman Marcus. And then I had a great career at Control Data Corporation, and that's in instructional technology, spent over 20 years in that, did really, really well. It was a good industry to me. And that's how I got here, is I was in that, and I went to work for a company called Loral Learning Systems, which was a part of Loral Aerospace. And the president and the CFO and I ended up purchasing that company, and it was really, really fun because we purchased it, merged with our major competitor that was a really good friend of mine down in Jackson, Mississippi, and sold that company to Viacom. Within 8 months. It was wonderful. It was fast, but it was wonderful.
And this is in the aerospace industry, you said?
It was. Loral was in the aerospace industry. It was a $6.4 billion defense contractor. And they had this little company called Loral Learning Systems, which taught, the course was developed for the Army, Department of the Army, and it was for helping our soldiers with the very basic reading, math, language, arts, because they knew that a lot of people that were being drafted in didn't have math skills, didn't have good reading skills. So this product did that. And fortunately, things happen for a reason, I think. And one of the things that happened when I came here is I had a good friend, a corporate attorney, negotiate my contract. And for some reason, I had Neil, the attorney, put in my contract that we would have a commission plan, because I knew Loral paid bonuses, not commissions. And I was being brought here as VP of sales and marketing. And so I said, we need to have a commission plan. I had never done this before, had it in my contract. Fast forward, I've written a lot of commission plans, okay? And being a salesperson, because I sold Bronto Scout cookies a long time ago, and I did really well. And I don't have any, there is no top to the commission. You can make as much money as you want, because when you're selling, the company's making money, right? So I wrote several commission plans, never got them approved. And Bernard Schwartz, who was the founder of Loral, is one of my mentors. I loved him. I mean, when you think about a $6.4 billion defense contractor, he ran that company with 70 people in the corporate office. 70. Think
wow.
global business, right? And so it really taught me a lot of how to keep flat organizations so you stay close to what's happening. So anyway, we get on the phone and I told Pierce and Gary, my soon-to-be partners, I said, we've got to get this plan together because I'd already hired salespeople. And it was so funny because when I came and accepted the position, they told me we had to do $250,000 in the first year. And I'm thinking I could do $250,000 with my eyes closed walking backwards. And it was like weird because I was used to selling a whole lot more. And so at this point in time, when we're having this discussion, we were already at $1 million. And so, and I got these salespeople and I said, look, just trust me. I'll get your commissions. I'm trying to get this baby through. And it's like, what is the problem? So we're on the phone, Pierce and Gary and I, my soon-to-be partners, are on the phone with Bernard Schwartz, the CFO of the company, and the COO, and whomever. And I said, we need to get the commission plan in front of you approved so we can pay our salespeople who, by the way, have sold over $1 million. Well, they hadn't, I had, but they had sold a lot, okay? And so the CFO says, well, Lynda, if I read this commission plan correctly, it means that if one of your people hits it out of the ballpark, they're going to make $250,000. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, that's more than I make. And I said, well, I'm hiring. I mean, what's your point? So Pierce is now, he's turning sheet white. So is Gary. And I looked at them because we're on a call, right? And there wasn't Zoom then, thank heaven. And I looked at them like, don't you say a word. Don't say a word, right? And so they said, well, we need to think about it. And I said, okay, but we need to have an end date here. We need to know when we're going to. So we decided, I don't know what day it was, but it was going to be within the week, right? So we get off the phone and I said to Pierce and Gary, let's go have lunch. We went and had lunch and I said, here's the deal, you guys. We're a rounding error to this $6.4 billion defense contractor. We don't have their attention except for this commission plan. They're not going to sign it because they're used to bonuses. They don't understand commissions. They don't. So we should buy it. And Pierce and Gary looked at me and said, what? I said, yeah, we should buy it. So long story short, over the Christmas holiday, we put a plan together and went to Laurel and we said we'd go after the angel investing. They had a requirement of how much investment we had to get. And so it was going to be Pierce and I were going to put funds in it as well as we needed to get additional funding. And so we did that and we bought the company. And that's how all that happened. It was a great ride. And neither one of them had been through any angel investing, so they didn't know that. And that part was really hard to get them to keep their mouths shut when we're negotiating, because during the negotiations, I knew that these people were going to invest in us. There were two groups, and we're at this meeting, right? And it's okay, this is where the rubber meets the road kind of meeting. And they said, well, we are going to invest and we'll do it 60-40. And I said, that's great. I'm surprised. But I'm pleasantly surprised. And the head of the two said, oh, really? I mean, you're good with it? And I said, yeah, I'm just surprised that you would accept 40. And he said, no. It's 60 for us, 40 for you. And I said, no, we're not. It's 60 for us and 40 for you. And so we talked, and Pierce and Gary are getting nervous, moving in their seats. And I'm thinking, I should have left you guys at home. Anyway, so the guy says to me, Lynda, we can't do this. The two of us have agreed. We will go in for 60%, not 40. And I said, hey, look, I get it. I very much appreciate it. We appreciate it. So I closed my book and I said, thank you for your time. And he said, what? And then Gary started to say something. I looked at him like, okay, do you want to be dead right now? Or do you want to continue to live, right? And so he said, well, where are you going? And I said, well, we're done. And he said, well, we don't want to talk about it. And I said, there's nothing more to talk about. I understand it's not personal. We can go have a drink. But you're not willing to do the 60-40 in the way that we're going to do it. So we very much appreciate your time and your interest in our company, but that's what we're going to do. And he said, you got to be kidding me. And I said, no. And he looked at Pierce, and I looked at Pierce in a way that you do not want to say the wrong thing here, because Pierce was the president of the company at the time. And so Pierce looked at me and he said, well, it's 60-40. We get the 60, you get the 40. And the guy said, all right, we'll do it. It was one of those wonderful moments, you know, like, yes. But
Wow.
it was 3 of us. So we're each going to get 20%, right? It
Yes.
didn't that way because Pierce put money in, I put money in. Gary didn't have money to put in, but it was very much, I mean, and it shows you things, right? If you're fair and you're transparent and you know what it is that you want and you believe in your dream and you know what your vision is and you go after it. It's like my dad always said, if that's what you want, go get it. So.
At that point, Lynda, do you remember how much was the company making annually?
Well, it was something, I mean, we had sold 1 million.
Okay.
And quite honestly, I mean, there was a part of me like, you wanted me to sell $250,000? I mean, that's a lot of money in instructional technology, particularly back in the 90s, early 90s. But I knew, I mean, I sold more than that. And so it was something that it made me appreciate the lessons and the opportunities. In my former life, which that was my former life, instructional technology, when I was at Control Data, and they formed a new company which was a partnership, if you will, and it was called Plato YCAT. And Plato was part of Control Data Corporation, which I love. William Norris is a mentor of mine as well, a hero. I mean, think about it. He started that company when he was 55 after he retired from the Navy. And he was worldwide. It was incredible. And he ran the company as an entrepreneurial organization. And it was the thing was at Control Data, you knew never to ask for permission. You only asked for forgiveness. And that's the way that we had 68,000 employees. And that's the way he ran the company. I mean, it's incredible. And so I learned a lot there. And when they formed this venture, Plato White, you cut me, I bled Plato. I love Plato. And so I had my interview. You had to be invited into this new company. And I had my interview on a Southwest flight going from San Antonio to Dallas with a VP, because he said, just grab a ticket, you'll come right back. But I don't have time except on the airplane. So he says to me, so Don has recommended that you take his position because this guy was going to be promoted to another government sector. And I said, yes. And he said, well, you know, our two companies have been in the Rio Grande Valley for 30 years and they haven't brought $1 out. And he said to me, what makes you think that a Caucasian female can go down into the Rio Grande Valley and get any money out? And I looked at him and I said, Dennis, it's, I guess because they were wrong. They just needed a woman to go down. So I got hired. In our sales cycle, one of the things that I'm most proud, and it was fun, because I believe you have to have fun. If it's not fun, I ain't doing it. But our sales cycle was anywhere from 12 to 18 months. By the time I shook your hand, from the time I shook your hand and said hello to the time I got ink on paper, it was anywhere from 12 to 18 months. So my objective when I went down to the Rio Grande Valley was two things. Number one, after 1 year, I would never make another cold call, even though I enjoy cold calls. And number two, everything would be by referral. That was my goal. So I went down to the Rio Grande Valley and within 8 months brought out 8 million.
Wow.
Just go after what you want. And it was within 8 months. I was a freaking hero, obviously, but I mean, it made a lot of difference, met a lot of great people down there and loved it. But it just, I guess the message is, if you have your eyes on something, if you want something, have the courage to go after it. Doesn't mean that it was smooth sailing. Doesn't mean there weren't any, rocks in the road, or there weren't any valleys and mountains. But are you willing to climb them? That's where the rubber meets the road.
What do you think you did there, Lynda, that before you, there was not a single person that they, just like he said, got $1 out of the Rio Grande, and then all of a sudden in 8 months, you come out with 8 million.
It's going to seem like oversimplification, but I listen. I do not listen to respond, I listen to hear. And for a salesperson, that's very unique. And that's why I look for salespeople who listen. Because if I'm listening to respond to you, I'm missing what you're saying. I'm missing your cues. I'm missing where you're going. And so I had that goal. And I met a superintendent. I had a colleague of mine introduce me to the superintendent of FAR San Juan Alamo, which is PSJA. And he remains my most favorite, even though he's unfortunately passed, my most favorite superintendent of schools, because he cared about his kids. He wasn't interested in being mayor. He wasn't interested in being county executive. He was interested in his kids. And that's where I come from. What difference are you making in your life for others? What are you doing to give back? And so his name's Gus Guetta, and Gus understood that I really cared about his kids. And I will never forget the night that they voted for the first piece, which was 2 million, which is incredible. And overnight it went up to 8. That's the whole story. But Gus asked me to come back into his office. And I went back and he said, I just want to know one thing. Is this going to be good for you? And I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be real good. This is going to be very good. And that's what I told him. I said, Gus, this is going to really be good for Lynda. And he said, yeah, besides taking care of my kids. And I said, Gus, it will take care of me as well. I mean, this is going to be good and I appreciate it. And he said, you know what? Gordon, which is my colleague, brought you in and introduced me to you. And I thought you were just another one of his ditzy blonde people. And what I learned was you really care about these kids. And I said, I do. And he said, you are the first salesperson who has come into my office and said to me, I don't know, Gus, if I can help your kids. I need to know more about your kids. I need to know what your goals are. I need to know what you want. How can I say I can solve a problem when I don't even know what the problem is? And he said, that's when I knew you cared.
I like that.
It's, and I think that that's true in any sales situation. I mean, I have been selling since Brownie Scout cookies. If you care about the other person, you're going to get what you want. But you have to genuinely care about the other person. And I will tell you, we have a major company, technology company, that we are the concierge service for. And I went to talk to them, and it was one of those things, I thought I was just going to talk to one person. Flew out to California, Silicon Valley. And I get there and there's 11 people. And I'm thinking, what? Wait, you're not prepared. You have no presentation. You have nothing. So I talked about Capitol Concierge and what we do. And so the person, my customer contact, walks me out and he said, Lynda, I'll be back to you in a couple of days. So I think, we're interested. I got to the San Francisco airport and Andy called me and he said, Lynda, send us the proposal. So we got the account. We've had the account for almost 6 years now. And he said, you're the only vendor who came in and said, we can't do that. We will try to figure it out. And I don't know how we can help you because I don't know who you are yet. And he said, that's when we knew. And he told me, he said, out of all 11 people, it was unanimous. It was you. And they had interviewed a lot of worldwide concierge services. He said, nobody cared who we were. They cared about making the sale. There's a message in there.
It is. Lynda, I'm curious, how did Capitol Concierge come about?
So Capitol, we were started in 1987 by a brilliant marketing person. Her name is Mary Naylor, that many of your audience will probably know. Incredibly, incredibly bright. She always knows what the market wants before the market wants it. And so in 87, with a loan from her mother of $2,000, she started Capitol Concierge in her mother's basement. And Mary thought, why are there concierges in hotels, but none in commercial office properties? Excuse me. So she started that business. And then in 1998, Mary, being the marketing brilliant person that she is, thought, okay, I'm going to start another company. I'm going to start a virtual concierge service using this little known thing that nobody knew what it was, called the internet. So Mary started VIP Desk. And because she was starting that, she needed somebody to come in and run Capitol Concierge. So Mary and I met. I came on board in 1998. And Mary and the former board wanted to keep Capitol just in the DC Metroplex. That's very boring to me. We only had one division, that was the commercial office property division. And so I told Mary I wanted to go into retail and residential, retail shopping malls and residential. And she said, Lynda, residential is a pain in the rear. She's absolutely right. We're very heavy into residential now. But so along the way, I was promoted to president in 2000. And along the way, we had an opportunity to sell the company 3 times. We went to the altar 3 times, never said the vows. After the 3rd time, I went to the board and Mary, and I said, why don't I buy it? And they said, oh, that's a great idea. I said, yeah, that's a great idea. It depends on the day whether that was a great idea. But we had, it was interesting. When I came on board in 98, we had 87 employees in the corporate, and 19 of which were in the corporate office. That was crazy. I don't even have 19 in my corporate office right now. But we have over 400 employees now, and we're global. I started a company in the UK and a company in Ireland about 4 or 5 years ago. And then we have another staffing company.
Wow. So at 2000, that's when you became the president. And was it the same time too? Is that when you acquired the company, or that came a little bit afterwards?
No, it was after I acquired the company in November of 2006. That was the start of the empire, per my M&A attorney.
So in 2006, how did the team look then?
We had 212 employees and 12 in the corporate office.
Okay. What were some changes? I'm sorry, go ahead, Lynda.
No, I believe in flat organizations. I think it's important for you to constantly look at how you can become more efficient. Coming out of the instructional technology world, technology should be the workhorse, not people. The people are the ones who make it sticky, make it integrated. I always would tell, I in my former life, I ran a sales force of 109 people. And I said, you must become a part of the fabric of the company. Because it's like when you have a sweater and you pull one piece of yarn, it leaves a mark, could leave a hole. If we're a part of the fabric of that sweater, nobody's going to take us away, right? So we have accounts that we've had for 25 years.
Wow. And when you
also have, we also have employees who have been with us for 23 years.
When your acquisition in 2006, were you global then?
No. Okay. So, and thank you. We were in the retail shopping market business. We had tipped our toe into residential, but I wanted to branch out. I wanted to become a national company. I wanted to become a global company, because then you're giving opportunity to your current employees to have a career path. You're also giving an opportunity to serve others. And so I told our team when I purchased the company that if they would come along with me, they would have opportunity to grow and thrive and have great careers here, and that we would become a national company and then a global. And within the 3 years from 2007 to 2010, we went into 5 additional states. And one of the things, it's a good and a bad thing, because 100% of our business is by referral still today. Now, having said that, either it comes on our website, and please come and talk to us. And it's very common for us to hear, I was told if we want service, then we have to go to Capitol Concierge. It used to be, I have to call Lynda. I worked really hard to get it away from call Lynda to call Capitol Concierge, and we pretty much succeeded with that. But it was very focused growth. And we did a lot of business with General Growth Properties, GGP, and they took us into North Carolina, into Massachusetts, into Connecticut. I mean, it was wonderful until the technology replaced the concierge or customer service. So, but it was great. And we were Tyson's Corner Center, Tyson's Galleria. We were at Towson, in Pikesville. I mean, all over. It was great. It was fun.
Lynda, how did you go about, running before different sales organizations, and now with Capitol Concierge and building this business, now being 100% referral based? Well, what are some key tactics that maybe just anyone, whatever type of industry, can implement if they wanted to build a business such as that, made it mostly all referral based?
It goes to our standards and our mission, and our standards are very very specific, and they're non-negotiable. And that's what people hire. That's what people trust. And that's what people rely upon. Our standard is 100% of 100% of the time. So think about it. You want 99% of your haircut? Oh, you want 100% when you're the customer. And that's what we tell our team. You don't want 99% of your pedicure. You don't want 99% of your suit. You want the whole thing. So how can I go to a customer and say, you're going to be okay with 99%? Doesn't mean that we're perfect. We're human. But we own everything behind that desk. And so if we mess up, we are very proactive of coming and saying, Otto, we really screwed this up, but here's what we're doing about it. And people, even though they could be really upset, respect the fact that you own it and that you got it and you're already doing something about it. And so I share with our new employees, if you can't sign up to this, it doesn't make you a bad person. It means we're the wrong company for your career, because that is what we do. And there are no exceptions, and it's in granite. And I share with people, if I'm going to hold you 100% responsible, I have to hold me 100% responsible. That's why our org chart's a bit different. I'm on the bottom and they're on the top. Why? Because I have one job. That's to support our employees. They have the job of supporting the customer. That's why they're on top, because they're the feet on the street. They're the ones who are in front of the customer. They're doing the job. The growth that this company has been able to accomplish is not Lynda, it's the team. Because people know when you hire Capitol, you're hiring very strict standards. And we have a very, to give you an example, we have in-house recruiters, and our recruiters prior to COVID were interviewing 34 people face-to-face to find one that we would make an offer. And then we pray to the drug and background gods that they're going to pass, right? But the reason why we are so selective is because we are not the right company for our company for everybody. And so that's why we have a very, very high retention of employees. And I always tell employees when I speak to them initially at their training is, welcome to the best concierge company on the planet. You have just joined the best concierge team you could ever find on this entire planet. And so I think to your question, it is very much, what are your standards? What is your vision? And are you transparent? Every single one of our employees, all 400, whatever we have, each have my cell phone number. They each know the standard. They each know where it comes from. Because I always say to our new employees, I will never give any employee of this company, as long as I am the CEO, the opportunity to say, I needed help and I couldn't get anybody at Capitol. Because my phone's on 24/7/365. So what are you willing to put into it? What are you willing to do? And I can tell you, there's been times where I've had to get out of bed at 3 a.m. on a cold night when there's snow on the ground and go cover a desk because somebody got sick. Okay, well, is that the best use of the CEO's time? Yes, it is, because the customer is taken care of. So we have obviously a lot of processes and procedures in place, and we never leave a desk uncovered. That's really important to us, and because people are relying upon us. And so we're pretty good, and we have a very strong VP of operations who has really implemented a lot of processes and procedures that have streamlined it. And just full disclosure, we have a family-owned business, and the VP of operations is my daughter.
I love that.
Yeah. Knows the CEO pretty well.
I love, Lynda, also how you put your team, your employees first, and you're always available to them. I wish most companies were like that and they're not just saying it.
I will, gotta tell you, and people think I'm being gratuitous, and I'm not. I didn't grow this company. They did. I'm just good at staying out of their way so that they can do the job that they need to do, and knowing that they are supported. And I tell people in our training, you know what? If you screw up, welcome to the human race. You hide it, you're dead. Because you take away the runway. We've been through all of these things. Maybe you'll be creative and come up with something we haven't been through, but we'll figure it out together. But the fact that you, whoever you are, know, we're partners in this, and I just have a different job. I always tell them, you know what? I put my pants on just like you do. I have a different job and a different role. Your role is as important as any role in this company. That's why our company thrives, not because of Lynda, but because of our employees.
I love your rich history, Lynda, how in the past you've created companies, startups from nothing, and then also went into companies and acquired companies already running and operating. What advice would you give to someone who wanted to start a company, whether startup from ground zero or go into somewhere where there was potential and opportunity to possibly one day have some type of equity there?
I think it starts with being honest with yourself. What are you willing to do? I was just asked by some friends who are doing a startup to invest in them. So we're talking about it. And I said, so what are you willing to do? Well, you're not telling me that you're going to get up at 3 a.m. when there's snow on the ground out of your warm bed to go cover the desk. You're telling me that, wow, well, I don't know. Be honest with yourself. If you're not willing to do that, you're not an entrepreneur who is willing to take the risks. And I will tell you, coming out of Las Vegas, being born and raised, I understand who made those hotels. It isn't the owners. The losers built those hotels. So I learned at a very young age, if you're going to bet on anybody, you bet on yourself. But in order to bet on yourself, you have to be honest with yourself. And that's hard a lot of times. And I'm in a CEO group, and our last meeting, and somebody said, well, what do you, and it was a general question, and what worries you about whether or not you can do something? And I said, I find the question really interesting, because if I want to go do that, my assumption is I'll do it. You guys are saying, well, I'm not sure. Well, if you're not sure, why are you not being honest with yourself? Because it's kind of like our CPA, and he's been with me ever since I bought the company. Our CPA and our M&A attorney said that, and I didn't know this for about 6 years, when I paid off the company. I paid the company off early. And they said, you know, Lynda, you said that you would become a state, that you would become a U.S. a state company or a national company and a global company. And we just looked at ourselves and said, that ain't gonna ever happen. It's gonna be a DC metro-based company. And look at you. I said, okay, well, you can doubt. I never doubted. And they said, I know. You just go do that. Well, you just go do that. It means that when you're faced with an issue, you can either see that as a problem, or you can view that as an opportunity to grow, to figure it out. I mean, one of my mentors years ago, he used to put me, I worked for him as the CEO in 3 different companies, and he was putting me into all of these opportunities. And he said there was one really tough opportunity here in Baltimore. And I was still in San Antonio. And I said, Jack, that's all mucked up. It's the sales strategy is wrong. I mean, this is wrong. Why are you sending me in there? And he said, because you will figure it out. And I said, yeah, but you know, Jack, and he said, Lynda, you should be thanking me, because each one of these opportunities, as you call them, that I send you into, you come out knowing you can manage through it. These other guys don't know how to manage through it because they aren't trying. You come out and you should be thanking me, sending me flowers. Well, I never really thought of it that way. Took me a while, because he would put me into stuff and I had to deliver messages that were, I mean, it's like in my former life, we were selling, this is kind of scary, but hardware that was like the size of refrigerators, right? And there was a 515 and a 316 or something that I don't recall disc. And so product development, it was coming out with new language arts, new reading and language arts, right? Well, it was supposed to be all installed in August. My clients included, except my clients never knew that they had, oh, it was a 365. So they never knew that there was anything smaller than a 515. Why? Because I knew as their schools grew, they would need to put more on the disc and the 365 wouldn't hold it. So all my clients had 515s, right? So anyway, Jack calls me and he says, Lynda, I need you to fly into Orem because we got a problem. So I fly in. I have no idea what's going on. Well, guess what? Product development, because they're all excited about building all of these things. It's going to be so fun. It wouldn't fit on a 365. We had accounts like Broward, Florida, and Chicago, and San Francisco, and New York, and everywhere, and it wouldn't fit. And it was supposed to be installed in 1 month. So Jack says, I'm calling all the salespeople together. Franco's VP of sales is getting them together. They're flying into Orem. I want you to deliver the message. Are you freaking kidding me? I've already taken care of my clients. My clients are not going to have to worry about this. And he said, Lynda, you will manage through this and you will learn from it. So he taught me it really doesn't matter if you've got the right attitude and if you believe in yourself. You have to believe, really believe, way down deep in your gut that you will figure it out. And you don't need to know that right this second. But maybe 3 a.m., 2 weeks from now, it'll come to you. If there's any advice I could give to anyone out there who wants to start their own company, be honest with yourself. What sacrifices are you willing to make? What are you willing to give of you? Because I couldn't count the number of dinners that I missed with my family or special dates. I mean, I was taking my husband, my daughter to Tokyo. We had tickets. And it was PSJ or Brownsville, Texas. We had tickets. We were planning. The board meeting was tonight. And the next morning we were leaving. I had all of that planned. It was done. And the board tabled the decision. And my boss said, Lynda, you should stay. You should go to Japan later because you're the one who's the glue in this whole sales cycle. He was right. And I knew he was right. I hated that he was right. So I had to go home and say, I know you guys thought we're going to be in Tokyo tomorrow, but you're going to be in San Antonio and I'm going to be in Brownsville, Texas. What are you willing to do? And it isn't a right or wrong thing. It's not, oh, well, I made all those sacrifices and so she's whatever. It is what is important to you. Is your integrity for yourself and you're honest? I mean, you may want to be an entrepreneur, but if you're not, you're not. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you need to go do something else and find something that gives you joy. So
what drives and motivates you now?
Well, that's a really easy thing, fun. I love people. I love people. I mean, I find that we're fascinating. And I made a commitment to myself when I was in college. And I was an older student getting my degree and I was working 3 part-time jobs. This isn't a poor little Lynda thing, but the fact of the matter. I was my daughter's room mother and I married, my husband had lost his job. I'm in school carrying 18 hours. And for whatever reason, heaven knows, I had to keep a 4.0 average, really stupid. And I was attending 2 universities because I couldn't afford all of the hours at the private university where I graduated. So I took some hours over at UTSA. And one morning I had a 6 a.m. class. And one morning I was studying for a class in the bathroom with a curling iron in one hand and a book in the other. It's 3:30 in the morning. And I looked at in the mirror And I caught myself. I looked and I said, Lynda, after you get this piece of paper, you will never, ever, ever again do anything that's not fun. That was in 1980. I've kept that. If it ain't fun, I ain't doing it. So that's what drives me. I love what I do. I love our employees. I mean, we have such great people. I am so proud of our team that, I mean, think about it. COVID hits, they're out in the front lines. They're in front of people. They're scared. I don't want COVID and I don't know what I'm doing. And Lynda says we can't leave a desk and we have to be there. I mean, they're incredible, incredible people. And they're considered essential personnel. So we haven't missed a beat.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask, how has COVID affected your business?
We had like 7 buildings that suspended service commercial. We're back all but 2 now. And it was wonderful. It was one of those moments during COVID, you know, and nobody's here. Everybody in our corporate office is remote. I have been in the office every day. And so it's been kind of weird being the only person in a building that's 10 floors high. It's just awkward. It's weird. So I would walk the halls, but so a client called me and we have 5 of his buildings, commercial. And he said, Lynda, it's Mike. And he said, here's the deal. We don't have enough people. We feel like we need to suspend service. So we could either cancel the contract or we can just suspend. And I said, Mike, we're just going to suspend. Who wants to go through all the work of doing a contract again? And he said, that's why I love you. Thank you. I'll see you later. Bye. You partner with people. You share with people. You be a part of their team of what is important. Did I not want them to suspend? No, I didn't, because then you lose that revenue, right? But here was an opportunity, to quote Jack again, here's an opportunity to partner and to learn how to work so that stickiness stays and so that you work through those problems together. And I am happy to say that we've only lost 1 building to COVID, if you will, and it's because it's a building that is funded by the government and they said close down. So there's nothing that can be done. I'm so proud and grateful for our team. It's incredible.
What would you say is your biggest challenge with your role at Capitol Concierge today?
Putting a governor on me, because I have things I want to do, and it's like I'm in this race and I want to do this and then I want to do that, and I can see it. I mean, I see it, right? And so I have to, the team can't continue to drink from a fire hose, right? So I have to ease up. And even when I'm talking and I'm sharing, okay, well, we could do this, and here's what I was thinking. And Misty, who's our VP of operations, is very good at saying, okay, you just need to not talk about that and give our team enough time to swallow what you just asked them to swallow, because there's a lot and they're learning a lot. So she's very good with that. I mean, her brain works that way. Mine doesn't. Let's just go do it, right? I mean, so that's the big, but I am getting better. I am getting better. Even though just before our call, she called me and said, okay, so here's the deal. You need to stay out of this because you're mucking it up. And I got into something I didn't know I got into, and she was right. But I'm very grateful that she's comfortable enough to say, you need to get out of my stuff because you're mucking it up. And as a CEO, you need to listen. That's what you hire people for, right? You hire people who are smarter, better, keener than you, because then your job's easy. Just stay out of their way.
That's true. Coming to an end here soon, Lynda, what does the future look like for you in Capitol Concierge?
Yeah, well, I should quote one of our concierges. We're on a company call this a couple of years ago, but it was great because I said, okay, well, it's more than a couple of years ago, I guess now. I said, guys, we are going to open a company in Ireland and a company in the UK. And somebody on the call said, oh my gosh, you always said we'd be global. We're so excited. This is wonderful. I love this. And so somebody else said, okay, so where are we going from here? And one of the concierges, I love her, said, we're probably going to Mars. And I said, well, who knows? And somebody said, we're not at Mars yet. I said, we're not at Mars yet. So we're looking at other avenues. We're looking at we do a fair amount of business with companies because we are an employee attraction and an employee retention amenity. And there's a specific ROI for the companies who hire us, the amount of time we save in company dollars. So we're really aggressively going after that. And quite honestly, it's easier because it's Monday through Friday, like 7 to 4 or 8 to 5. So we don't have the weekend stuff. So we're looking at doing that, but we're very fortunate in that our brand is strong and people seek us out. And a company that everybody on your podcast would recognize, a big technology company, came after us and wanted us to respond to an RFP. And I told the team, I said, you guys, even if we don't get this, which I think we will, we've got a great chance. But even if we don't, the fact that they came to us and said, we want you to respond, we've looked at you, we are now competing against the big guys. So kudos to you. I mean, think about what we've been able to accomplish. So it was a wonderful moment for all of us. And we're still waiting to hear. So we're excited because we are to hear the last of September, the 1st of October.
It's amazing. I hope it's great news.
Me too. Fingers crossed.
Yes.
But I am so really proud of the team. They came together. It was a difficult proposal to put together. It will take us into other countries. And that's exciting. But I very much, the fact that we were even asked was special. It
is. When you're not busy with the business, Lynda, what do you like to do for fun in your free time?
That's the $64,000 question, as they say. I am involved in a number of CEO groups, and that's fun for me. But it goes to what I was saying. If it ain't fun, I ain't doing it. I like what I do. I enjoy coming to work. I enjoy our people. I enjoy being a part of this, part of building a company together. That's really important to me. And so I'm very, very bad about taking vacations. I'm trying to get better. So I am taking one in a couple of weeks. I'll be gone for about 4 days with my family to see our youngest granddaughter, who's at the University of South Carolina. So we're going down there. But it always fascinates me because what I do is fun for me. What I do is enjoyable to me, or I wouldn't be doing it. I wouldn't. And so when people say, yeah, I need to get away, you do need to get away, particularly as being a CEO, you do need to have brain time. So one of the things that I would say to people on your podcast is one of the that I did, and the CEO group I'm in, we all had, how do we manage our time, because your time is so specific and concrete. I went to no meeting Mondays, and we have a deal. If you go back on what you said you were going to be held accountable for, you have to pay $20. I've only had to pay $120. But no meeting Mondays has been such a blast of fresh air. for me because it gives me brain space that I didn't realize that I didn't have. And so that's like a vacation to me. No meeting Mondays are really cool because I can think. Now, some would say, oh my God, she needs to go back to have meetings on Mondays because she's always thinking about what we're going to be doing in the future. But it's, I would say that's one of the things that's really important. But the bottom line is, if you're not enjoying what you're doing every day, what are you doing? It's your life. This isn't anybody else's life. This is your life. You got to enjoy it, right? For however much time that you have on this planet, enjoy life. It doesn't mean that you're in a constant state of enjoyment. But if you don't have 80, 90% of enjoyment out of what you're doing, be honest with yourself and start self-analyzing what would make you happy, what would bring you joy. And so for me, one of the things that brings me great joy is I'm on the board of trustees for my alma mater. I just joined the board of the National Crime Prevention Council. Do you know who McGruff is? McGruff the dog?
Yes.
Okay, I love it. I mean, McGruff, everybody says, what happened to McGruff? Well, I'm telling you guys, McGruff is here. McGruff is going to be back. I mean, I am so pushing this. I'm excited about him. As a matter of fact,
I haven't seen him in a while. Oh.
Well, here you go. There is McGruff. I love McGruff. So I get a lot of joy out of that, and I get a lot of joy out of the other. I'm in the Tiffany Circle for the Red Cross. There's a lot of that. And quite honestly, the fact that I have such a strong team allows me to do that stuff.
That's great. If people want to learn more about you and Capitol Concierge, or maybe even join Capitol Concierge, where can they go to, please?
Go to our website, fill out the application, let us know what your availability is, what hours you want to work, and our recruiter will call you.
Lynda, thank you so much for coming on this show. I had an amazing time.
No, I did too. Thank you so much for asking. Thank you for allowing me to share my story.
Of course, the pleasure is all mine. Thank you and take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.